You're listening to Bold Hearts, Big Moves, the show for female entrepreneurs who want it all: a thriving business, deep self love, and fulfilling relationships. I'm Erin Anderson, and each week we will dive into how to set stronger boundaries, make empowered choices, and show up in life and business with boldness, authenticity, and heart. Because let's be real, the money you make is directly related to the love that you have for yourself and the strength of your relationships. So if you're ready to lead with love and make those big moves with those bold hearts, let's dive in.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Bold Hearts, Big Moves. I have with us Joseph Descans. He is the author, and it's a brand new book. It's not even hit the shelves yet, from what he's told me. But if you want to grow rich, plant a tree. And as we've been talking, it's been a very interesting conversation that I've had with him about this idea of the workday, the 8 to 4, right? And I've been really curious about like how this fits in to the female entrepreneur work schedule, because there's so many things that we try to juggle, right? Like maybe we are working a side job and maybe we are trying to also build a business, and maybe we've got the kids and we've got all these things like church callings and all these things that are running through, the the air traffic controller piece of the woman's brain, right? And I know that one of the things that we would love to do is simplify, right? And the idea of an 8 to 4 does kind of tend to simplify things a little bit. And so I'm going to let Joseph, first of all, welcome, Joseph.
Thank you for having me on your show, Erin.
You're welcome. You're welcome. But I'm going to let Joseph kind of explain this to you, and then I'm going to ask him some questions about like how this fits into the female entrepreneur mindset and schedule.
Okay, very good. So I'm just going to do a little flash of my book and the cover there. There you go.
Shameless
So,
plug. It's all good.
yeah. So that's what I'm talking about. And so how this came about, I'll give you a little history, is one day several years ago, I was at my house um, um, lamenting my financial situation. And I prayed a simple prayer. I said, Lord, you see how deep this ditch is, and it's getting worse, and I don't know how to reverse it, but I know that no matter how bad it gets, you can get me out. And and so I
That's
prayed that
true.
simple prayer, right? And about a month or two later, I was on my couch reading John chapter 15. And if you don't know what that is in the Bible, it's I'm the vine, you're the branch. And so he's the husbandman talking about grapevines. And so as I was reading that, the Lord spoke to me. He said, you need to get out of the tomato business and into the peach and avocado business. And so I was reflecting on my own yard. And in my own yard, I had 0 tomatoes, and I did have a peach tree, and I had an avocado tree. And so what he said didn't make sense because according to my yard, I'd already done that. But and so I go, so what do you mean? And he said he likened tomatoes to your 9 to 5 job. You go to work 5 days a week, 9 to 5. You get a paycheck on Friday, and you have to go back to work on Monday, or you don't get any more paychecks. And so that's like a tomato. You plant a tomato, and tomatoes grow fairly quickly. You get a bunch of tomatoes, the plant dies, and you have to start over. And so it's a short-term investment. Um, Whereas you have the peach and avocado. In my yard, I had a peach tree. And the peach tree, I got it from my sister as a little sprout, that just sprouted up from her peach tree. And then she gave it to me. I put it in the pot. The first summer, it had 1 peach. The second summer, it had 50 peaches. The third summer, it had 100 peaches. And the peach tree can go for generations. And so, and then when you plant them from seed, it takes a year about to get your first peach. And so you get nothing for a year. You put the work, it's not too hard of work, but nevertheless, you do some work and take care of it, make sure the bugs don't kill it and other stuff. It gets water. And then you start getting peaches, but it can go for generations once it starts. And then avocados are a little different because it might be 5 to 15 years before you get your first avocado when you plant them from seed. And so that's a long wait. 5 to 15 years is a long wait. So you're caring for the tree, you're working on it, you're pruning it, you're watering it, keeping the bugs off it, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and then one day, boom, you get avocados. And then the avocado tree, like the peach tree, continues producing potentially for generations. So it can go for hundreds of years. And so basically, the Lord was telling me, to get out of the 9 to 5 job and into building residual income. And so that's a summary.
Oh, I
And
love it.
so, yeah, so and for your viewers, Aaron, your lady viewers out there, your entrepreneur women, starting their own businesses or building their own business right now. So I basically put it in two categories, and that is the married woman and the single woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the married woman is obviously working with her husband. Usually, the married woman, especially if she has kids, she's at home taking care of the kids, and her husband's out working. So her husband is earning the money, and maybe he can come home. Ideally, this is the way I picture it. Ideally, he comes home after 8 or 9 hours of work, and the woman can take over and do her job of building residual income. He gets to come home. She's had the kids all day. She's pulled out a bunch of hair and got grown a few gray hairs or
It is
whatever
kind of
during the
true.
course of the
Yeah,
day.
we're gonna go with
But
that.
and then she could relax. And I mean, working may be relaxing for her. And she gets to create and build and, build a residual income. And, there's many women who surpass their husbands in a short amount of time. And I know one and her husband who go to my church, and, the husband retired from his job, and his wife is making substantial money. And this is how they did it. She worked on her job little by little, and built it up while he had his 9 to 5 job until she passed him up.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is the goal. And so, as we were talking before, Aaron, so it's built on my model. The model that God gave me is built on the biblical work week. And so the biblical work week is 6 days and 12 hours. 6 days, meaning that we have a 7 day week and you rest on one day and work the other six. And then, of course, the biblical work day is based on the landowner who hired people to work in his field, and they worked 12 hours a day. And he came and got more, and et cetera, throughout the day. But they worked a 12-hour day. So 12 times 8, or 12 times 6 is
How many days are we going here?
72.
No, it's all good.
Is 72. So you basically, the model is to work your 8-hour day, and you want to do this preferably while you're young. You start young, and you work your 8-hour day doing your 9 to 5, and then you spend your other 4 hours building residual income.
Mm. And and it makes sense. So like, going back to the tomatoes and the peach tree and the avocado tree, right? Like I'm in Utah, we don't grow avocados, but we can grow peaches, right?
Right.
And we can
Mhm.
grow tomatoes with the best of them. But, this idea of, the 8-hour day being like the tomatoes and then the 4 hours being that peach tree, you know, a lot of women, they have the 9 to 5, or maybe they're 9 to 9. Well, in my personal my personal experience, being a mom, is not a
Hmm.
9 to 5 job. It's more like a midnight to midnight
Right.
type of a
Right.
job, right?
Right.
Like you go all the time. But, in my own personal experience, like tying this into what you're saying, I remember have I've got 6 kids, by the way, just in case anybody wanted to know that. So totally midnight to midnight type of a thing going on here.
Right. I've
And
got 4.
right? And they make life very busy. But this idea that, you know, you can spend time uh working on residual income. You absolutely can. Like when I was much younger. I know I look young, but younger. When I was younger, um and my older kids were little, right? Uh we were in this position of struggle, right? We weren't sure if we were going to be able to buy diapers, or we weren't sure where the groceries were going to come from. Like, we just weren't sure. Like, we were trying our best to balance things out. But what my husband was bringing in was not able to meet the needs of our family. And it wasn't his fault, right? It wasn't his fault at
Hmm.
all. He was doing his best.
Right.
Um, but it became pretty evident to me that I had to do something, right? To help meet the needs of our family. But how do you do that, right? When you've got a family, these little kids that need you, the cost of daycare is astronomical. Like,
Right.
I actually figured it out. If I went to work and put my kids in daycare, all my money would be going to daycare. Like, I'm not
Right.
even joking, every single cent. So what's the point, right? I'd be
Right.
in a different situation there where, yeah, I wouldn't be with my kids all the time, but I wouldn't be better off financially.
Right.
Right? So
Right.
there was no point in me trying to go out and get a job, right?
Right.
Um, and so I was like, the only way I'm going to be able to fix what's happening in our income is for me to be able to stay at home and create an income. That's the only way,
Right.
right? So guess what? My 4 hours weren't a collective 4 hours. They were
Right.
me with the kids here for like 2 or 3 hours. They were good for just a minute, and I spent an hour on creating that residual income, right? Then it was another couple hours with my kids creating, and then another hour with residual income. And so I had to break it up. But over time, what's ended up happening is my home business has evolved. It's grown, it's changed. It's become a whole different entity, right? And even right now, like, I still operate from my home. But last year my business hit 6 figures, right?
Mhm.
And it's all
That,
from the comfort of my own home.
yeah, that's good. That's exactly what we're talking about.
And isn't that cool? Like, isn't that
Hmm.
cool? Like, yeah, I'm not getting paid to watch my kids. That's okay. Like, I get paid in joy and kisses and hugs and very
Right.
very colorful walls that need a Mr. Clean Magic eraser. But you know, I get paid. I still get paid in other ways, and I love it. I enjoy it. And when we lean into that, right? Like the landowner, we feel like a landowner when
Hmm.
we're tapping into these things, when we're tapping into being that mom, being the 9 to 5. Like, maybe you don't even love your 9 to 5, but there's something about it, right, that you can love,
Right.
right? There's something in there that you can learn. But those 4 hours, no matter how you spend them, they can be very, very precious. And they really, really get to help you step into loving the land that you're creating. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah. Loving the land. That's good.
Yeah. And that's what's fun about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because for the female entrepreneur, like the masculine entrepreneur, they're very good at hustling, right? They're very
Mm-hmm.
good at controlling the situation and making sure that it works well. They're very good at like the solidarity, the solidness, right? And if you think about I think about like Grant Cardone, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's
Right.
a fabulous masculine entrepreneur, but can I operate like him?
Mm-hmm.
I could. I don't want to.
Right. Right.
Right?
Right.
Right? For me. But the thing, and the feminine, they're very much into the flow. They're very much into the soft. They're very much into the attraction type of energy.
Uh-huh.
You can still become a landowner when
Right.
you step into those things that you love. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. And so that's the thing, people say, where's your wealthy spot? You want to find your wealthy spot, and that's the thing you love. And the question so many people ask, people that are successful, they ask people that are getting started, what do you love? If you could do anything and money was no object and time was no object, what would you do? So, you find out what is really in there in your heart, and that's probably what God put in there, right? And
Hmm.
so if you can tap into that and do the thing you really want, that's where your joy is going to be. And obviously it's going to be in helping other people. And when
Hmm.
you're out there doing what makes you happy and you're helping other people, that's your wealthy place. And so as a mompreneur, at home with kids, you have to make your own schedule, and you find those little bits of times, and you just put them together to build a business, and you just pick at it over time. And then one day all of those little actions you took turn into something, and next thing you know, your income has passed your husband's, and you're going, okay, hubby, you can quit anytime you want.
We've got this. We've got this. And
Yeah.
this is what's fascinating is my husband and I are actually now at the place because I've hit six figures, right?
Hmm.
And it's my business is set to do that again this year and actually do more. Um, but we're at the place now where we're like, okay, like what kind of a role do you see yourself playing in this business, right? Like we're having
Hmm.
those types of conversations. Like how fun is it? Now, granted, I don't think I really ever had an 8-hour job, right? But
Uh-huh.
there are, like I said, because it is a little different with the kids because there's not like days off, there's not vacation time, right? Like there's none of
Right.
that.
Right.
But I do think like there's something to be said about all the work we do as moms, right?
Hmm.
It can feel I mean it's kind of grueling. It
Right.
definitely is.
Right.
It definitely is. And if we look at that 8 hours as oh goodness, like as that gruel,
Uh-huh.
what do you think it does to the 4 hours, when we're
Oh
like,
yeah,
oh,
you get to create in those 4 hours. That is so life-giving and enlightening. So maybe you've been getting work. Maybe you need to, yeah, let's just say, how your main time where you can work. Maybe you can educate yourself during the day. You listen to podcasts or read or something. You got something going on where you can multitask a little bit with the kids, but then your hubby comes home and you can actually have him take over the kids, and you can grind. So to work, maybe you need a little nap, or maybe you need a little workout, and then you get into the grind and you can create. And that's joyful. It really is when you get into the place where you're made to be and what's in your heart, and you can create that is rejuvenating, right? That is so
Mm.
rejuvenating. And and you look at the Proverbs 31 woman, she's an industrious woman. A lot of people look at the fear of the Lord aspect, and obviously that's critical. But nevertheless, she's a very industrious woman. She's got a lot going on. I assume she doesn't have any newborns, but nevertheless, she has got a lot going on, taking care of her house. She's like making clothes. So she's got a clothing company, right? She's got a real estate investments. She's got all kinds of stuff going on there. And, there's no shortage of funds. It says, her candle doesn't go out overnight. So basically, back in the day, the wealthy people had candles and to light their house when the sun went down, and she had enough cash going where she could keep the candles going all night long. So that's saying a lot about her, and what she's going on, and her industriousness. I'll
Hmm.
say that. And so, yeah, that's the women are like, and so, what always comes to my mind is that book, Women Are Like Spaghetti and Men Are Like Waffles. So, men can do a lot of things, so they have all those compartments, but they can only do one thing at a time, right? They can only focus on one thing at a time. But the women are like spaghetti. They can like have all these things going on at the same time, juggling kids and doing stuff. So it's just kind of, a unique way that God made us, and so women are able to get a lot done.
We are. We absolutely are. And the thing is like I like the idea of being industrious, right? So
Hmm.
I'm actually somebody too that comes like from the world of trauma. I've had a lot of trauma in my own life, right? And I haven't
Hmm.
always felt that support. So like where we talk about like husbands who come home and they're like, okay, I'll take over the kids, like, you go focus on what you want to for a little bit. Like that would be fabulous if
Hmm.
husbands always did that. But it's been my experience oftentimes that husbands come home and they're like, oh, don't even talk to me. Give me space. I like, right?
Uh-huh.
And like we get it. And I think and like to give husbands a little bit of grace here,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Uh I think like they don't see that their wife has been doing like that all that work too
All day long,
all day
right? With
long
the
and go go
kids.
go and with the kids and totally touched out and like all the thoughts going in and out of her brain and blah 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 blah. Like the idea to hand the kids over would be fabulous, but the husband's already feeling pretty whew. And being with the kids oftentimes like to me was just so natural, right? That
Hmm.
it can look like I was doing fine. So my husband oftentimes would come home and he would be like, okay, I got to decompress. I got to do my own thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
If that's the case, what would you say needs to happen?
Well, I think that, you know, uh, just knowing my own self and then men in general. So my own self, two things. When I get tired, I either A, need to take a nap, which if I've got normal sleep, that's 20 minutes max, right? It
Mm-hmm.
takes me 5 or 10 minutes to fall asleep. I sleep for 2 minutes. I wake up, takes me a couple minutes to wake up, and I'm back going, right? And so either I need to do that and to rejuvenate, or I need to exercise. It's one or the other. So, the husbands, the most important thing is that they have a vision for what you're doing. So if they have a vision and you can talk to them and they have a vision, then they'll understand. But maybe when they come home from work, either A, they need to chill for a half hour, watch the news, whatever, or maybe they need to take the dog for a walk or go to the gym, right? And so something like that. And so just say, hey, maybe we can make this work if you get your nap, you get your half hour on the couch, you get your dog walk or, lift some weights, go for a jog, and then I can do my thing. Right. And
Right.
so maybe they can get over their get home from work thing, within a half hour to an hour, and then let you do your thing. And I enjoyed my kid. What helped me, kids, I meant to say, um, what helped me a lot is once God spoke to me and he says, be mindful of your emotions.
Oh
And
yeah.
because when you check on your emotions, you go, why do I feel like this? Especially if it's a negative emotion, you don't really need to worry if you're in peace and love and all that stuff. But if you're in a negative emotion, you go, how did I get here? Why did I get here? And then find out what that is and fix it, right?
Hmm.
And go, okay, is this right? Am I doing the right thing? Why do I feel bad? Go back and find out what it is and then straighten that out. And so that helped me out because like I was coming home and turning on the news and my kids are wanting to come and play with me or do something, and I'm like, get away, and so
Yeah,
then I'm like,
anytime.
yeah, I
Yeah.
go, and I realize, okay, well, that's not good. This isn't healthy, And after I did it a few times, I'm like, step back and I go, okay, this is wrong. I need to spend this time with my kids. I don't need to watch the news. I really need to spend this time with my kids, and spending the time with the kids was rejuvenating. I
Hmm.
love my kids and playing with them, so I had to make a change. And so, husbands, wives, if you can find a creative way to share that with your husband and inspire them, it might take a week or a month or something, but just to, if they can get a hold of your vision and see what you want to do and where you're going, that's going to help.
Yes, that is true. That is true. Because the vision, as it's become more clear to my husband, he's definitely been a lot more supportive and a lot more on board of things. And it's not felt so, like at first it was a little threatening to him, right? But
Mhm.
it doesn't feel that way now. And he sees like what I do, he sees the impact I'm making, like he sees all that and he's like, how can I have a piece of that? Which is really cool,
Right.
right? Like
Hmm.
that's the conversation we're having now. But even if that's still not the case, right? Like my personal advice is make sure that if you personally don't feel like anybody's out there to support you, because I kind of did feel that way, when I first started my own business, I had all the naysayers, right?
Uh-huh. Right.
Support yourself. Realize that if this is something that's on your heart, if it's written on your heart, it's not going to leave your kids high and dry, right? You love your kids. You're going to balance that time naturally,
Right.
right? You do. But the thing is when you realize that God supports you, and He absolutely does, He supports this message. I know for a fact He does. I mean, I could not build what I have built on my own without Him, right? Like it just doesn't
Right.
work.
Right.
And my kids, since I've started my business, they've been happier than they've ever been. They're a lot
Hmm.
more rock solid. They're confident in themselves, right? Like they're happy kids.
Hmm.
And yeah, like I want like the vision I want to just really give here is it started with me first and foremost being willing. Like even if I didn't have outside support by my parents or my husband or whatever it was, right? I did have support from the one parent that mattered. That's my Heavenly Father. And so I needed to support me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
That's where this comes from. Because the thing is like I went into business to support my kids too. And
Hmm.
their lifestyle and the things that they wanted to do. Like that's my why. Well, one of them, I should say. My bigger why is because
Hmm.
God wanted me to do it.
Right. Right.
Right? And so I
Hmm.
did. I did. And eventually, when you come into this piece of, you know what? I'm going to support myself. I'm going to be that landowner. And you make these decisions, right? It's making
Hmm.
the decision. It's amazing how your time does start to work for you because you're getting that clarity. And clarity is so key when it comes to building a business, right?
Right.
Because even if you're like planting that peach tree, you got to have some clarity there, right?
Yeah.
I've
Yep.
planted it. I personally have planted a peach tree before.
Hmm.
And like I wouldn't have known. I like I just figured you get the pit from the peach and you plug it in the ground, right? Like
Right.
there's a lot more involved to it. You have to
Hmm.
open that pit up. You have to get that little uh almond seed
Right.
kind of a thing. You have to
Right.
soak it for a couple of
Yeah.
days. You have to put it in a pot. You have to let it germinate. Then you get it into the ground and then there's all the work that you have to do there, right? You have to have clarity
Right.
too when it comes to what you're going to do in that 4 hours.
Right. Right. Yeah, and sometimes the clarity comes from just waiting on the Lord and sitting, and other times you get your hands in doing stuff, and even if it's the wrong thing, after you do it for a while, you go, "This is the wrong thing. I need to be doing something
Yes.
else." Right.
Yeah.
And so that
Yep.
may be part of the process, but you have to go through that process,
You
you
do.
know? Yeah, so either way, and there's tons of distractions and all that stuff going on. And so, obviously the thing is to just stick with it and not give up and,
Hmm.
and find that sweet place.
Yes, exactly.
I was thinking about what you said about your kids and how your kids are happier. And, and like I said, for you to be out there creating, is healthy.
It is.
And what comes to mind is the parable of the talents where the king gave the guys the talents and said, okay guys, get to work, let's see how you do, I'm going away, let's see what you get done by the time I get back. And the two of them gained and the other one buried his,
Yeah.
right? And it didn't go well for him, but women have talents, and
Yes.
you have that creative thing and you're not going to be fulfilled unless you're doing it. And so, yes, you can do the kids, you can do it. And there may be little micro amounts of time that you have as you're doing a newborn, right?
Hmm.
Um, but nevertheless, even in that time, you can be building your vision, creating your vision and making plans. You may not be able to put your hands to something as much, but you can still be nurturing that vision and planning. And
Yes.
so, as you are doing that talent that you're made to do, you're going to be happier, and therefore your whole family is going to be happier.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. It is true. It's so true. And and I'm even thinking as you're talking about the newborn, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've been in business for easy 15 years and it's evolved and it's changed, right? But in that amount of time, I've had 4 kids, all of them
Right.
newborns, right? I've done the
Mhm.
whole newborn stage and been a businesswoman and balanced kids and stuff like that. And the thing that really does come down to, and like I said, I love this idea of the 8 and 4, right? Obviously, not every day, especially for the female entrepreneur, is going to look like the 8 and 4.
Right.
Some days you're going to be able to put in tons of time on your business. Some days you're only going to be able to maybe put in 30 minutes, if that, right? It
Mhm.
happens. It happens. But the whole point of this is flow, right? Especially for the female entrepreneur to have the idea that there's something that we want to put the 4 hours in and eventually increase that to 5, then to 6, and then maybe even to 12, or maybe we might even say that, you know what? I really want to take more time with my kids. Maybe I like the idea of the 8 to 4, right?
Right.
The whole point is putting in the effort and just the consistent effort. That's where the simplicity of this lies, right?
Hmm.
Putting
Right.
in that consistent effort because eventually things do tend to work out. I mean, when I was first starting, everything was totally chaotic. My house was always a mess, right?
Hmm.
And I'm not
Right.
going to tell you that right now because my little girl's on the other side of the store, that the minute I walk out there that it's going to be all pristine and everything. Nope, nope, nope. As a matter of fact, yesterday I walked out and she had somehow, somewhere, I don't know how, found markers, and guess what was all over my couch? She had
Right.
muralized my couch, right? And so it's like
Right.
things are still not perfect, and we're not looking for perfection.
Right.
We're looking for simplicity.
Very good.
right?
That's good. Yeah.
And when we get into that simplicity, the whole idea is simply to take a look and say, okay, what did I do for the 8 hours today? And what did I do for my 4?
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And just keeping it simple. And eventually, things do tend to work out. My house is definitely more organized and cleaner than it's ever been, and I still have kids,
Right.
right? Even though I've got a muralized couch that I got to go clean at some point today, right? It still is working out. And this is the thing, like, there's also a quote that says, work as though everything depends upon you, trust as though everything depends upon God,
Right. Right.
right?
Uh-huh.
And I think that's very much into the language of the 8 to 4 that you've been talking about.
Yeah, and then there's always the whole thing of the impossible, because, a lot of us, as we're going into this and especially getting started, we feel like, we have the imposter syndrome. Even people, well-seasoned people have the imposter syndrome,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And so we have to be willing to look at things that are impossible, kind of rhymes with imposter. So you look at the things that are impossible, if your goal is so small that you can achieve it, it's not big enough, right? And so we're looking to do things that oftentimes feel impossible. And so you're definitely looking for the God element there to be a part of your business growth. And you can't come to a place where you're like going, oh, that is impossible, I'm going to quit. You can say that's impossible, but God's going to help me. That's where you're supposed to be at.
Yes. Because you know what? I have a friend, and she has this quote that says, nothing is impossible. The very word in itself says, I'm possible.
Right.
So if you look at the like how impossible is spelled, the I am possible, right? I'm possible. So it's true, and it is possible. We just need to simplify. And and I think that's true for not just the female entrepreneur, especially true, yes, for the female entrepreneur, but for men as well, because it's like you even said, like when you were like, hey, I really want to spend time with my kids, like I rejuvenate when I spend time with my kids, right? You simplified, which was
Right.
really awesome. You didn't it was you getting out of the complicated and into the simplified, which was amazing. I loved it. Love it, love it, love it. So,
Hmm.
Joseph, tell us, you said your book's not quite out yet. Do you know when it's coming out?
I have the other book that I wrote. So here's another shameless plug. That one. There we go.
Shameless plug.
Boom.
Hosea.
Okay. So that's Hosea, the prophet who married a prostitute. And so that's the one I'm working on at the moment. And so it's, I've had to learn how to market. And so in the last few months, I've been gaining ground on that. And so once I feel like this is like pretty solid, I'm good on that, then I'm going to move into the next one. I'll feel like I know what I'm doing. And so I already did publish it back in like 2006 or something, but I didn't sell any. And so I'm going to relaunch it,
Relaunch.
once I have a plan, a good marketing plan, and I feel I can do a successful relaunch, which should be, I'm thinking 6 months before the end of the year, definitely. I'm gonna get it back out there. So we'll see how long it takes, but hopefully less than 6 months.
Well, I wish you all the best luck because I love some of the insights that you've brought definitely to the
Mhm.
table today. And when it does come out, please let me know, and we'll add those links also to the podcast episode. Sound good?
Okay, sounds
All
awesome.
right. Joseph, thanks so much for being here today, being a fabulous guest. And for my listeners, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Okay, bye.
All right, Boundary Boss babes. I'm super excited that you tuned in with me today. Make sure you tune in again next week as we chat about more Boundary Boss babe topics. We're going to get into so many other things about how to set boundaries with your business, how to set boundaries with your relationships, so you can truly have the time, the money, and the flexibility that you are seeking. So tune in next week. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast. Let your other boss babe friends know about it. And also, if you've got any questions, make sure you submit them into the podcast by clicking on the send us a text message at the bottom of the podcast description. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. See you later, boss babes.